Hi guys, it's Geekonomics here, and today I'm bringing you the fourth in the series of Back to Basics. This one inspired by my Year 11 students after their trial exams, their mock exams, and a particular question which is a very elementary question, and yet the number of people just throwing away little marks was remarkable. So hence this little feedback video and, as I say, an addition to the Back to Basics section. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to look at the difference between real, that's R-E-A-L, real GDP values, sometimes referred to as GDP at constant prices, the difference between those two things, and nominal GDP, or sometimes referred to as GDP at current prices. You will be aware, I'm sure, that GDP measures the total output in the economy, and GDP, gross domestic product, the total value of goods and services produced in an economy over a given period of time, usually 1 year. And of course, we as economists, in order that our standard of living increases, generally speaking, we would like to see an increase in those GDP values. However, depending upon the data that you are presented with, whether that be real GDP or nominal GDP, it is sometimes not quite as easy as just looking at the number and ascertaining whether or not there has been economic growth. So I'm just going to run through a little example and hopefully maybe clarify this for you. So here we have a table for an economy with 2 years data, and we've got GDP on the table as well, gross domestic product. Year 1 GDP totaling a value of £1 trillion, and in year 2 total GDP totaling 2 trillion. Now, you might be presented with data like this in the exam, and you're then asked, has this economy experienced any economic growth? Now, to the unwise, to the uninitiated in this fabulous subject of economics, they may just look at this and think, oh well, 2 trillion is bigger than 1 trillion, so therefore the economy must be bigger, surely. And there are a few scenarios that might be popping into your mind at the moment. So we could say, for example, that possibly this economy is now producing twice as much as it did previously. That's a reasonable assumption to make, I suppose. We could also assume that this movement from 1 trillion to 2 trillion, that could be a combination of factors, two factors. So it could be a combination of rising prices in the economy and maybe a little bit more output in the economy, a little bit more economic growth. So it should be a combination of economic growth and price rises. Or, worst case scenario, you might not be producing any more output. It's simply the value of what you produced this year, the price of it is twice as much as it was last year. So you're not actually producing any more output. The reason that this number has inflated is due to inflation. So which of these three things might it be, and how do we as economists go about solving this problem? Well, the solution, ladies and gentlemen, is to express these measures in either real, what's known as real terms, or at constant prices, or we express them in nominal terms, which is the same as current prices. I should have switched those around, but yeah, that's what we mean there. Let me do that actually. Switch those around so that's more sensible. I mean the same thing. So constant being the same as real and nominal being the same as current. So let me show you a little example which hopefully will bring this to light even further. So here we have a table. Again, it's the same table as previously, but I've added one additional column, ladies and gentlemen, and the column is an output column. Now you can see here that the values are the same, 1 trillion up to 2 trillion, And if we did not have this data here in the final column, we would be faced with the conundrum that we were faced with before. So we don't know if this is growth of outputs, we don't know if it's growth of prices, or if it's a combination of the two. When we can now see, okay, in year one we produced one car, and in year two we still produced one car, we can now see that all of this growth is arising because of inflation. There's no growth, there's no real economic growth here. It's all rising because of increases in inflation. But we don't have any economic growth here because, of course, we're still only producing one car. Let me just add something else. So let's say in the next year we produce, or this economy produces another year on, so they produce, instead of producing one car, they now produce two cars. So what might the scenario be in this case? Well, the economy is clearly experiencing some economic growth because we've gone from one car to two cars. It's unlikely, of course, that that additional one car of output is going to be worth £1 trillion, although it might be, in this very basic assumption, an example. So we could possibly say here that there'll be some element of economic growth and also some element of inflation. So you can see the problem here, ladies and gentlemen, is that inflation artificially raises the level of GDP, and so people misinterpret that as economic growth, whereas really all that's happening is prices are rising, and there may be some economic growth, there may be no economic growth. And so, how do we combat that? Well, we refer back to, ladies and gentlemen, this terminology, real and constant, or nominal and current. So if this data here said, for example, real, if that says real GDP, I know that all of the inflationary element here has been stripped out. I know that inflation is not artificially enhancing the value of the GDP number here, and so I can say with complete certainty and confidence that this movement from here to here is all due to economic growth. So that is why this real GDP figure is so important. We can look at it and we can tell immediately, has there been growth? Has there even been economic contraction? Or not? It's as simple as that. If this said nominal rather than real, nominal GDP, well, that presents me with a problem, because nominal does not strip out the inflationary element. So nominal is telling me, okay, we may have a little bit of economic growth here, but some of this could also be due to price rises. And I can't tell whether that's the case simply from looking at this data. So the great advantage of the real GDP number, to come back to what this Back to Basics Part 4 is all about, if you're looking at real GDP, you can say with absolute certainty it is due to economic growth. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I leave it there, and that is the end of this week's edition of Part 4. Subscribe, like, do pass on, do send any questions, if it's something specific that you'd like me to look at for you. I know we're sort of moving into quite serious exam time at the moment, so do send me questions and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Bye.